So today we're here with Annie Phyo, and I wanted to introduce her. She's an eco lifestylist, award winner, author of 4 uncooked books. Is that right?
Yes.
Published probably over 1,000 recipes to date. You won Sexiest Woman of Raw 3 years in a row: 2008, 2009, and 2010. And also, you have 4 Best of Raw 2008 awards for Best Chef, Favorite Cookbook, and Favorite Educator, and developed raw vegan menus for Carnival Cruise Lines, Adidas, Nike, Stomp, and Whole Foods. While a consultant for Adidas Fitness Center, you drew up Adidas athletes on how to fuel up with raw nutrition and optimal performance, and you also volunteer with Project Angel Food, and you host your Raw Food Kitchen show. You have an extensive resume here. It could go on and on. So glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And so tell us a little bit about your Raw Food Asia. What inspired you?
It's my 4th uncooked book now.
Yeah.
So the first one was about eco-green living.
Uh-huh.
The second one was around beauty. So I really wanted to develop desserts that we could eat for weight loss and beauty. And then the third one was really breaking down the myth of raw food being difficult to prepare. So in the essentials, I sort of pare it down to show how easy it really is to make. And then I really wanted to do one that was Asia. And what's sort of funny is that my whole life I've not wanted to be Asian. I've always wanted to just blend in.
I read that. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, and so finally I'm embracing now today being Asian, because I'm realizing how much of my heritage actually is eco-green living and also raw food. So I think that from my heritage and background, that's why I thought it was because my father was ill, but I'm also realizing how much of that is just because Asians are very tied closely to the earth. Even when you go to Seoul, you know, there's always not old, but you know, people like, you know, with baskets of vegetables and fruits on every sidewalk and street corner.
That's
you know,
amazing.
selling, fresh produce, and there's a real connection to the earth.
Uh-huh.
So I'm realizing how much, especially now that my cousins have children and watching how they're raising their children, how they're feeding them, I think it's part of how we are brought up to really enjoy all whole foods as fresh as possible. A lot of the Korean foods are fermented and pickled, which is, you know, probiotics, and a lot of it is already raw. So I'm sort of realizing now how much of that is actually from my cultural background. So I sort of felt that I sit in a perfect place of, you know, straddling the best of the West and then the best of the East, and then being able to fuse that together to bring
that's
that.
awesome.
So that was my inspiration.
Annie, what I love of your book, I love this Raw Food Asia, is that at the beginning of each chapter, you talk about things that you learn in life, you share your life, and you share experiences and words of wisdom that you learn just by living or from another people. Why did you do that instead of doing another recipe book?
Well, like I said, each of my books have a theme. And so I like to write, I think it's important to show that it's lifestyle. You know, eating this way is more than just a diet. It affects every aspect of our life, you know, because when we fuel ourselves with whole food nutrition, we feel really great because we're, you know, blasting our bodies with nutrients and enzymes and vitamins and minerals and nutrifying ourselves, and we feel really great. We have a lot of energy, we feel vibrant, and so we feel happy and we feel good. So I find that in that, it actually translates to so many aspects of our life. The way we interact with others, you know, the way we give back to community. You know, when we feel good, you can achieve anything. And so in this East-West fusion, pulling from Asia, I wanted to bring in a lot of sort of like the spiritual ideas that came from Asia, which today has become popular, because today now it's very popular: yoga, Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, all these things that come from the East now. We look to the East for longevity secrets and spiritual practices and, you know, all that meditation. I do Vipassana, which comes from India, or in that area.
What was that called? It was called
Vipassana.
Vipassana.
It's a style of meditation that the Buddha spent the rest of his life teaching. It's non-denominational, not religious. It's a form of meditation that he spent his whole life teaching after he reached enlightenment. So, you know, all of that now has become more acceptable in the West. And so I'm realizing that with that there are certain principles, certain values, you know, things like in America we love so much our youth. You know, but we sort of forget how valuable wisdom is that comes only with age. You know, and in the East, my uncle just now turned 80. So they had a huge party for him with all these family members, and they showcased his whole life. And even though he's 80, that you're forced in Korea to retire at the age of 65. But even though he's 80, he still dresses up in a suit now and again, and he was a scientist. So the research center still sends a limo, picks him up and brings him because they want his advice and his wisdom, because they really revere that. He's 80, he worked there for his whole career. You know, he hasn't been there since he was 65, but they still very frequently call him back because he's an elder. He knows things that, you know, only people, you know, only age will have developed that wisdom. And so that's very revered in Asia. And so trying to find a balance between that, you know, because it's sort of a shame that our elders in America, we want to sort of shove them away into nursing homes and, you know, close them off. And there's so much wisdom that we could learn from them. So that's why that was the inspiration for my book, you know, started bridging the gaps.
And when we are talking about raw food, how to make people understand the importance of raw food, how do you think is a good approach to bring people who are not raw foodies, not make them become raw foodies 100%, 80%, but just to incorporate foods? What do you think, especially with